can somebody, oh, thank you. Yagwe, and thank you for joining us today. I am pleased to introduce President of the Republic of the Marshall Islands, Hilda Heine, who will update you on a meeting of the High Ambition Coalition this morning, which just concluded, as well as, and I'm very privileged to welcome Prime Minister Gaston Brown of Antigua and Barbuda, Deputy Prime Minister Honorable Dr. Biman Prasad of Fiji, Minister Eamon Ryan of Ireland, State Secretary Jennifer Morgan of Germany, and we are also joined by the Ambassador Kevin from France. But I now hand to President Heine. Oh, and I'm so sorry. I'm terrible. Right next to me, I was looking too far away. Our good friend, Minister Maisa Rosas from Chile. President Heine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Tina, Yagwe, and thank you for joining us today. HAG members met this morning alongside the UN Secretary General. The coalition is ready to work together to deliver ambitious outcomes across the board at this COP. We are also publishing a statement today, and I'm glad to have the support of 21 members. HAG members agree. We are united in our commitment to the Paris Agreement. This agreement offers hope to citizens around the world affected by the crisis. Too much is at stake to allow for anything less than a race to the top. Our members agreed that there is hope to be found. As we come together to negotiate a new collective quantified goal, we must overcome differences and redouble our commitment to global solidarity. We agreed that trillions of dollars are required and that we must urgently increase the amount of financing for climate action. Our members noted that we must reflect the critical importance of grant-based and concessional finance, particularly for adaptation and loss and damage, and put in place the right conditions for green investment to thrive. Accessibility is also a priority. We must also accelerate the transformation of the international financial architecture and address long-standing inequities. Addressing debt and the high cost of capital is also key. We have all committed to slashing emissions sharply in this decade through a just transition that leaves no one behind. We must deliver on the energy commitments made in Dubai and tackle the trillions in subsidies that support fossil fuels. Members agree that we must all reflect these commitments in 1.5 degrees centigrade aligned ambitious NDCs. We know that adaptation saves lives and that all countries must take forward adaptation efforts and have the means to do so. Finally, our members agree that women and girls are disproportionately affected and must be at the heart of solutions, and that all voices must be heard and respected. We will keep striving for ambition together.
Thank you so much, President. Just because the statement is attracting so much attention, I can update that we have now actually 25 who have signed on. And so we're very happy to see that, that number going up. We have a very short time. I will open the floor for just a couple of questions. I will invite our members of our distinguished panel to respond as they wish to the questions. So the floor is now open. I see toward the back there. I'm so sorry, I can't. Can you please just, you have your hand raised, yes. If you just say your question and also what organization you're coming from.
Hi, thank you. My name's Kate Abner. I'm a journalist from Reuters. I wanted to ask the panel for your reaction to the announcement by MDBs yesterday that they will significantly raise their climate finance provisions by 2030. It's sort of one of the earliest big climate finance announcements of the COP. Is this sort of meeting the bar in what you would like to see from MDBs and other private finance, climate finance providers, or does it fall short? I'd just be keen to get a reaction from the panel. Thank you.
Yes, I'm going to go first to the minister from Chile, who had said, unless... Minister from Chile.
Thank you for the question. I think something that is really relevant here is that we have been asking for a reform of the financial architecture for quite some time, and we have seen it in different COP's decisions. And this is very crucial because something that this coalition has in common is ambition. And it has ambition from a very diverse group of countries. And from a developing country perspective, that ambition can only be met and realized if we have the finance. And for that, what the what the multilateral development banks are doing is crucial. So we really need that so that that ambition really translates into action. Otherwise, we are forced to have low ambition. So it is essential, actually, that it happens, and it happens quickly.
Thank you. I think that's a very important question. The rethinking by MDBs, particularly World Bank and other regional banks, in terms of emphasizing climate finance and bringing out a more blended product with more grants, with more concessional loans, as well as normal loans. But I think that is not going to be additional finance unless, we have at this COP a very clear agreement on the new collective quantified finance goal. And I think the ambition of this coalition is really right there to enhance and to support and to get that ambition realized. The multilateral development banks or multilateral lending institutions can only go up to a particular point. Beyond that, I think this commitment would be crucial. Thank you.
Jennifer, I think you also wanted to come. Oh, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. There's a major financing gap to facilitate the transition to renewables. As a consequence, we see each succeeding year getting hotter and hotter. So clearly, we're moving in the wrong direction. In fact, we're about to see an overshoot of the 1.5-degree threshold. And the only way to correct that is to reduce emissions and to accelerate the transition to renewables. But that transition requires funding. But unfortunately, many of the states parties see the issue of climate funding as an expense instead of an investment in a healthier and sustainable planet. And perhaps we need to change the narrative so that these countries, and even at the micro-organizational level, that they do not see the issue of climate funding as an expense, but as an investment. And also to address this inverted morality in which those who contribute to funding climate change, that they see it as a random act of charity, not recognizing that they have an obligation, a moral obligation to provide funding, especially the historical emitters and even those who currently have large emissions. Because at the end of the day, about 270 years ago, they were actually burning the planet down without recognizing that they were doing so when they pursued the Industrial Revolution. And I would say now that we are deliberately burning the planet, because whereas we could have said 200 and 270 years ago that individuals were ignorant about the effects of climate change, today we are fully aware. The science has predicted that if we do not transition quickly, that in essence we may not have a planet on which to live. And if we do believe in the science, then it means that funding for climate must be a priority and ought to be seen as an investment and not an expense. So we need to look at the issue of the fossil fuel industry to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, to reduce the subsidies to the fossil fuel sector. And we do recognize too that green energy or renewable energy is an equalizer. And many countries that are dependent on fossil fuel energies for their revenues, they do not want to accelerate the transition. And as a consequence, they put in the health of the planet in peril. So I think that we need an all-of-society approach. And I'm very happy with the commitment of the hack, in which we are literally seeking now to drive greater ambitions. But one thing I'll say here is that our ambition, that is our espoused value of high ambition, must be matched by commitment in action. And I'm hoping that as we continue to advocate through these various COPs, that we'll see greater commitments and that ultimately we'll be able to mobilize more funding from various sources using innovative financing instruments so that we can get the trillions of dollars that are necessary to accelerate the transition to renewables and ultimately to save the planet and human civilization. Thank you.
Thank you. I first just wanted to say how pleased Germany and Chancellor Scholz is to be part of this statement. Thank you, Madam President, for your leadership. Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you also all here, because I think through this type of leadership, we have seen over the years how the Paris Agreement has thrived and will continue now to thrive. We have also seen, I think, within the European Union, how taking climate action goes hand in hand with our own economic prosperity. The European Union reduced emissions 8.3% last year. As a whole, over the last years, we've reduced our emissions by 37%, with an increase of 68% in our GDP. So we've seen how we can have hand-in-hand growth and how it is in our own interests, not only our own emission reductions, but also to be working together to have a strong outcome here in Baku on climate finance, one where MDBs will play a very important role in that, how we need to be sending the signals to deal and address issues around debt, around international financial reform, more to do there, but also very much to work together within the High Ambition Coalition to be having the private finance being raised to go to where it needs to go, but the public finance and concessional finance also coming forward so that adaptation gets the attention that it needs. Finally, I think just this has been a coalition to keep the 1.5 degree goal within sight, to have ambition all across the board. We are very keen and ready to work together so that at the end of this COP, we see how Paris is thriving. Thank you.
Okay, we have just until 11. Just for all to understand, we do have printed copies of the statement if you need it on your way out of the room. I think I saw Sarah. Yes. And we'll try to get to that question as well.
Hi, thank you for doing this. It's good to hear from all of you. I'm Sarah Schoenhardt. I'm a reporter with Politico and E&E News. I'm curious how you think a possible retreat of the United States from global climate cooperation. I know you're all rolling your eyes, I'm sorry, but I do want to know how this might impact the finance negotiations. The U.S. is at one point a member of the HOC and one of the world's major shareholders in the MDBs. So if you would kindly respond, I'd be curious how you're thinking about that.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. As you know, the Paris Agreement is almost 10 years old, and we've seen that the process is resilient. The work is moving forward. We have the opportunity now at this COP to deliver an ambitious outcome that fortifies trust in the process. For the Marshall Islands, the climate crisis is the most pressing security threat we face. I will communicate with President-elect Trump about the importance to our shared security as they are bases in the Marshall Islands of taking the climate crisis seriously. I think, as I said, the Paris Agreement is a robust process. We don't think that the election result will necessarily put a stop to the process that is underway. In the United States, states and cities are already actively moving this process forward. It might be different at the federal level with the new president, but I think already policies are in place to move this work forward. Thank you.
I want to make sure that we get one more question in, and I will go now to. Oh.
Sorry, if I could just
sorry,
respond briefly
Sorry, Prime Minister. Go
to
ahead.
that question. I believe that the withdrawal from the Paris Agreement by the United States will be a retrogressive step. The United States has an obligation, a moral obligation, perhaps more so than any other, to provide leadership and climate funding to address the issue of climate change because of its historical emissions. So they need to provide funding to clean up the mess that they created over hundreds of years. And they also need to provide funding as a form of climate justice, because at the end of the day, the United States, like other large polluting countries, would have created a tort against all of humanity. And for them to walk away from the obligation, I think that is totally inappropriate. And all of us should hold the United States responsible to provide the leadership and the funding to address this existential threat facing all of humanity.
Thank you, Prime Minister. One last question. Yes, in the back, Benjamin.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. A question for you. You are the High Ambition Coalition, and only a couple of G20 leaders have showed up at this COP. What do you think on the topic of ambition of this fact? Thank you.
As a G20 country, I think I can just state also by the signature of Chancellor Scholz on the statement about what Germany is doing in reducing our own emissions, in leading the way, 61% in renewables, driving our emissions down, that he and I would say the entire European Union stands firmly moving forward on climate action. Heads of state met last week and reconfirmed in Budapest that European competitiveness is linked deeply to being the first continent to go climate neutral. We are moving forward. We are benefiting from the transition, and I think our leaders' statements speak for themselves. Thank you.
Minister Ryan.
Yeah, and just in response to the earlier question, if I can, the Secretary General Guterres addressed our earlier meeting, and he reminded us that last year it could have gone towards being a fossil fuel COP, but instead we agreed to transitioning away COP from fossil fuels. And my memory of that is that actually the High Ambition Coalition played a really significant role, because it was a meeting place where you start to build consensus. George Monbiot said yesterday that this process is flawed because you have to get, every country has a veto, you have to get 196 countries. But I'm not too sure how that veto actually works, because when you have a coalition north, south, east and west, it's very hard to stop that. So I don't believe any country, be it the United States or others, in a sense can put a veto, a block on what we do need to do to make progress. And nor can it be, we said in our meeting earlier on, nor can what we agreed last year be a menu just to, I'll take this bit but not another. And I think one of the reasons why that's the case is because we are moving to a better system, a better economy. It has to be. It'll only work if it's a better system, including the financing system, which currently is fundamentally unjust. It leaves out large sections of the world, and it doesn't provide reliable finance for what we need to do. So whatever one country does, I think what Jennifer says is true. Paris Agreement still lives. It's still strong. It's actually delivering for countries because it is the way forward to a better economy. And any country that might want to veto or opt out, I think will come back because they realize that they're falling behind they're missing out on the new economy to come.
Thank you, Minister. With that, unless anyone wants a final word, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. I just want, on behalf of President Macron, also to say how proud we are to be part of this group. France is a great supporter of the hack, and we joined the declaration, of course. And thank you, Madam President, for your leadership. I think this group is a unique circle of countries that keep the ambition high, and we certainly see that we're going to need to do it. Just to answer quickly on the question, as a G20 country before as well, I think we're trying to do our share in France as well, and we're being kept accountable by our ambitious countries here. And we will reduce our consumption of fossil fuels by 75% for coal, 60% for gas, and 70% for oil by 2035. And I think this shows that we're taking the UAE consensus and the agreement of last year very seriously. And we know that on mitigation, the G7 country and G20 has to lead by example. So we will do that, and we will continue to push on the finance, obviously, to keep the ambition high. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I just want to thank our distinguished panels of leaders of countries that are showing up to demonstrate that we do have the leadership, and we have countries moving forward together. And I also just want to thank all of you, the journalists who have shown up here at COP, to highlight that we're still in it, and we're still moving forward. So thank you so much for joining us today.